A hyperbole, can you see that word right there? Hyperbole is a literature type thing of exaggeration and overstatement. You say something that it's like, it's not literal. You can't take it literally, but it's definitely making an exaggeration. Here is a list of hyperboles, examples here, just some of them. Have you ever heard someone say, I'm so hungry I could eat a horse? That's a hyperbole. You can't eat a whole horse. Or, she's as old as the hills, or that's as old as the hills. It's just an exaggeration there. She is not that old. Hills have been there for thousands of years. Or, I walked 1,000,000 miles to get here. I walked 1,000,000 miles to get here. Or, oh no, my parents are going to kill me. They're not going to kill you, but it's a hyperbole. It's an exaggeration. I'm reading these right here. I just died of embarrassment. You didn't die. You wouldn't be saying it. You wouldn't be living to say it. Okay. Or, he's as skinny as a toothpick. That's just great. They're not that skinny. Okay. Or, she's as tall as a beanpole. Or, I like this one. It rained cats and dogs. It did not rain a bunch of cats and dogs coming down. Oh, this goes on and on. I'll do a few more. New York is a city that never sleeps. Yeah, people do go to sleep in New York, but it's so active. It's like a hyperbole given the idea of something. Or, I have a ton of papers to work on. I have a ton of homework. A ton is a whole lot of weight there. You don't have that much homework, but I say that word all the time, a ton. Or how about, I am just dying of starvation. What's for dinner? You're not dying of starvation. Oh, this could go on and on. Or, man, that cost me an arm and a leg. Well, you still got your both arms and you still have your legs, so it didn't cost you an arm and a leg. The point is that was very expensive. And on and on. I mean, this could go on and on, a huge list of stuff. Now, the thing that Jesus said, I think, not sure, but I think it was hyperbole, what he said in this next verse. It said right here, this is in Mark chapter 13, verse 19. He said, see if I can read it here. He said, because those will be days of distress, tribulation, unequaled from the beginning, when God created the world, until now, and never to be equaled again. Okay, so if you remember, he said, flee Judea, get out of the area. I hope pray that it's not in the winter, I hope the women are not pregnant, that whole passage. If you didn't hear the last video, listen to that. Then he says, that word is therefore. The reason is because it's going to be really tribulation. A lot of tough things are going to happen. So you need to get out of there. You need to get out of Jerusalem. And the Christians did. Many of the Jewish people did not. Okay, they stayed there and they went into the city and a whole lot of people died. The tribulation was just horrendous. And so right here, this great tribulation, later he says this is tribulation, after the tribulation of these days. And Matthew mentions the, quote, great tribulation. I don't know if you can see that. Great tribulation. Okay. So a time of distress. The NIV says distress, anguish. Affliction is what the King James Version says. Trouble. It's a lot of trouble is happening. It was so bad, by the way, if you can handle these stats, this is really a really tough time here. Let me get this up here. All right, these are some statistics here of what it was like. Are you ready for this? Josephus says, of course, Josephus is a great historian. He lived during all this time. He actually witnessed this, by the way. He actually saw this in 70 AD, the Jerusalem coming down and the temple being destroyed and all. Super sad. He actually lived through it and he saw it. He was taken as a prisoner. He was a Jewish historian and he wrote this for Rome, for the Romans and all to know, and for the Jewish people. And he literally said, by the way, he actually said almost the exact same thing that this said, that Jesus said. He said actually that it was never been like this before, never will be like this again. It's hyperbole, most likely. I mean, there's been really, really huge things in history that could have been worse than that. It was one of the worst for sure. I mean, think about the flood, the deluge, that big, huge flood in Noah's time. Of course, I think they died quicker, where these took a long time. The siege of Jerusalem started in April, I think it was, and it went all the way through August. And it was the armies of the Roman armies under Titus came and surrounded the whole city, and they were all locked in there. They couldn't go out. They couldn't go in. They started losing all their food. Their food was eaten up, and they basically had a whole lot of problems on the inside there. As a matter of fact, there were 5 wars in that city that was going on. 4 were different factions, different groups of the Jewish people where they're fighting each other. It was awful. And then the outsiders, the Romans coming in, they were fighting them. And when one faction was fighting the Romans, another faction was fighting the rear side of the Jews. It was just tribulation, a lot of horrible things. And then, by the way, as the Romans came in on the city more and more under Titus, the general, it was so bad. But finally, they came in on the northwest corner, I think. Well, I'm not sure. I think this is northwest over here where Antonia, the fortress Antonia, even the temple itself was like a fortress. It was just really powerful and strong. Herod did a great job of building that. He came in, and right as they were coming in, and the Jewish people, a lot of the Jewish people realized that, oh my goodness, this is over. They're going to take our temple. The Jewish people set the temple on fire themselves, sort of like people do as a suicide mission. Romans would kill themselves before having the enemy kill them. They set their own temple on fire, and Titus, as he came in with his soldiers, he saw the magnificence, the beautiful, astounding, surprising beauty of the temple and how awesome it was. He even said to the soldiers, put the fires out. He didn't want it to be burned down, but it was too late. And it got destroyed just like Jesus predicted 40 years before. 1,100,000 people died. Now, he does exaggerate. There's that word, exaggerate. He doesn't, I don't know if that he was using an actual hyperbole, like ridiculous exaggeration, but there might not have been 1,100,000, but that's what he said. And sometimes it's been proven that he exaggerates. Maybe it wasn't in this case. 400,000 were killed in battle, just straight fighting. 600,000 bystanders killed. People that weren't even in the battle just got killed because of probably the fire and everything else. 30,000 men were crucified. Did you hear what I just said? 30,000 people were crucified. See, it wasn't just Jesus that was put on crosses. 30,000 men. It doesn't say women, it doesn't say children, but at least we know there are 30,000 men that were crucified. As a matter of fact, it takes wood to create a cross. Miles and miles, for miles, they cut down all the trees for miles all around. As a matter of fact, they ran out of trees, and they actually started crucifying them and nailing them to city walls and to other, just on the wall. Wow, really, really, really intense. Almost 30,000 people died close to the area in the proximity, like not even in Jerusalem, just in that surrounding area. 97,000 people were taken as prisoners and became enslaved. They were slaves. So this was a great trouble, and Jesus really warned them of it. And he said he's telling them why they should flee, because the tribulation is going to be so bad. It's like he exaggerates, I think. And he says, because those will be in the days of distress, unequal from the beginning, never like this before, never like it again. Well, you say, well, Gordon, why do you think it was it's like a hyperbole? Why do you think it was an exaggeration? Because maybe it really was that bad. Well, parts of it might have been that bad. It certainly was a judgment. Oh, this guy's knocked down. Sorry, Peter. Okay, he's still telling the 4 apostles these predictions here. It certainly was a judgment right here of God coming down on Jerusalem and the people of Israel, the Jewish people. Why? Because they crucified him. They took the Savior, their Lord, their Messiah, their wonderful Savior, and they killed him, had him killed. Not all of them, but a lot of the Jewish leaders. And it was judgment against God. God was done with them. Not really done with the Jewish people, but done with that group right there at that time. And so Jesus predicted all this, and super, super sad. But, why do I think it's an exaggeration? Because there were a lot of other examples in the Bible, in the past, in the Hebrew scriptures, the Old Testament, a lot of examples of the same sort of statement, like of the, like it's never been like this, never will be like this. Over and over it says it in the Old Testament. And also in other Jewish writings. Here's a list of them, just some of the examples right here. We have Ezekiel 5:9 says it, Daniel chapter 9 and chapter 12 says it, Joel chapter 2, Jeremiah mentions it, and then even outside of these books, and there's other books I believe, Maccabees, First Maccabees in the Jewish writing, the Assumption of Moses 8:1, Barak in chapter 2, Josephus in his writings, two different times in his writings, the book of war on the Jews, the wars of the Jews, he said it twice in different ones. Even in the Qumran writings, Qumran was over there by the Dead Sea, that was almost word for word what Jesus said. Like, never been like this, never will be like this. It's kind of an exaggeration. It's kind of a feeling of this is really exaggerating to show this is extraordinary suffering, something that we've never even seen before. That's kind of a picture of it. And that's just a way of saying things to make it like really big, very intense. Not necessarily was the worst, but it's like, it's exaggerated. My point is that they said that a lot in different things. Now, I'm not taking away from what happened, because there was a lot of death. Like I said, 1 million, like Josephus said, 1,100,000 people died in that. Like, that is a whole lot of people. And broken down into those figures right there. So really, really bad. So Jesus, do you see my t-shirt or my sweatshirt here? My t-shirt, yeah. My long sleeve shirt, fear. Fear gripped Jerusalem, and they really got destroyed. Jesus predicted it. It happened. My personal opinion at this point was that this was about 70 AD and not some future thing with a 7-year tribulation period and, something that's going to happen in our lifetime or past or in the future lifetime. He even says this, if you read it carefully, he says, why you should flee these areas, Judea and all? He said, because those will be days of distress unequaled. And then it goes, it says, then later, after the tribulation of those days, so that already happened. He's talking about then. He's talking about what it's going to be like in the near future of that time, which is the 70 AD. So, it says, because those will be days of distress unequal from the beginning, when God created the world until now, never to be equaled again. And then we're going to go into the next verse, which is very interesting. But I hope you got what I'm trying to say here. It was a very serious and sad time, but you got to follow Jesus. The apostles followed him. The disciples followed him, all those people. These guys told the story. It got spread, and the Christians got out of there in time. When they saw the army surrounding, they said, that's what Jesus said was going to happen. Let's go. And they didn't go down from the house, stopping in the house. They didn't take time to pick up their stuff. From the field, they just left right then and there when they saw all that happen, when it really became too intense. That they had to get out of there. Okay, hope you got something out of that. God bless you. Thanks for listening.